So first of all, I hear from different people that they say, I have antivirus and I am fully protected. So number one, there is no such thing as 100% security and protection. And Infostealers know how to bypass some antiviruses. And unfortunately, we also see the cases when there is a detection by the antivirus, but the person by himself disable the antivirus and run the file again. Okay, so number one, the first misconception, antivirus do not provide 100% protection against the Infostealers.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our interview with Leonid Rozenberg. Leonid is a threat intelligence researcher and infostealer malware subject matter expert at Hudson Rock, which is a cybercrime intelligence company that specializes in sourcing compromised credentials from infostealer infections. And Leonid's background includes experience in cyber threat intelligence and dark web hands-on research in leading companies like Insight and Checkpoint. And before joining forces to fight cybercrime, Leonid served as an intelligence specialist in the Israeli Defense Forces and Israeli National Security Agency. Leonid, welcome to our Risk Management Show podcast today.
Thank you very much, Boris. It's my pleasure to be here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure too. So I believe we will have a very thoughtful conversation on the topic of infostealers, because it's sometimes very confusing what kind of issues people have when they get infected. But before that, Leonid, could you tell us a short story about your career path, yourself, or what brought you to where you're right now, and what you guys at Hudson Rock are up to these days?
Sure. So as you mentioned, my name is Leonid Rozenberg, and I've been doing different types of intelligence roles for almost two decades already. I started my way in the government sector, Israeli Defense Forces and the Israeli National Security Agencies. And at some point, I decided to move from a real-life intelligence to the cyber intelligence. And I was always this kind of tech-savvy person that is interested in the new technology, something that is unique. And I always knew that there is something called the CTI, the Cyber Threat Intelligence. And when I started to discover the CTI world, there was one specific niche that I was always passionate about it, and this is the cybercrime and the dark web intelligence. So back in the days, I'm talking about 2016, there was no too much good public information. Of course, there is no university degree in the dark web. And because most of the underground sources are also in the Russian language, and I speak Russian on the native level, so for me, it was no brainer to dive deep inside this topic. I started to learn it by myself. And from this point, the rest is the history. As you mentioned, I worked for a company that was acquired by the Rapid7 as a threat intelligence analyst, as a dark web expert. Then I led this vertical at Checkpoint. And today I'm happy to be part of the Hudson Rock and discuss the Infostealer topic with you and your audience. So thank you for having me.
Fantastic. All right. Let's do a small introduction to infostealer malware. Leonid, could you explain what infostealer malware is and what makes it particularly dangerous in today's cyber landscape?
Sure. So infostealer malware, and as the title suggests, this is some malicious software that knows how to steal information. And by the way, in the community, in the cyber travelers community, we call them simply the stealers. So the stealers have two main targets when they hit your computer. Number one is actually to infiltrate the victim system. And number two is to exfiltrate all the sensitive information. So unlike the ransomware, when you know that you have some kind of security incident because one day you wake up and you see that all your files have been encrypted and you see this message that you need to pay to unlock your data, infostealers, they operate completely in a different way. They 100% stealth, so you don't know that you have this infection. So their main goal is to quickly and efficiently steal all the sensitive information and probably you will never know that it happens on your computer. So by the way, speaking about the data, about the information, the stealer, they know to steal different kinds of data. And back in 2008, it was mostly banking-related credentials, like a login to your bank account. And then we saw that they start to steal also the social media accounts. But around since 2018, the threat actors, basically those people who deliver this malware and work with this malware, said, all right, we already inside somebody else's computer. Why steal something one when we can steal everything? And this is the reason that for the last 6 years, InfoStealer, they know how to steal all the data from your browser. It means usernames, passwords, autofills, your physical address, basically everything that you store inside the browsers. Then they can steal your cookies. And then it depends a little bit on the malware family. They know how to search your computer for crypto-related stuff. They know how to steal maybe other sensitive data. And this is, in a nutshell, what are the info stealers.
Mhm. Okay, but let's understand the threat. So you mentioned that InfoStealer malware can steal passwords, cookies, and other sensitive data. Can you elaborate on how these capabilities enable attackers to bypass security measures like two-factor authentication?
Sure. So let's focus here on the cookies, because a lot of people, they don't understand the value of the cookies. So cookies is basically some kind of valid session that is stored on your computer. And if this is, by the way, the reason that the next time that you log into the Facebook or to the LinkedIn or to any other service, you don't need to retype your password again and again. This service simply checks if you have a valid cookie in your computer, and it opens your access to your social media account or for something else without typing again the credentials. So if I'll take this cookie from the victim and copy paste to my browser, I will be able to impersonate to somebody else, and then it will help me to bypass the 2FA because I don't need to do this step of logging into somebody else's account because I already have somebody else valid session. So this allows the threat actors to log into somebody else's account without triggering the authentication process.
All right, this was a very good explanation even for a beginner. So let's understand the impact on businesses. Of course, I think everyone is aware of this, but how does compromised data from InfoStealer malware impact businesses regardless of their size or industry? Or could you provide some maybe examples, maybe without dropping a name, of the potential consequences such as ransomware attacks, corporate espionage, or account takeovers?
Yeah, sure. So before we talk about the different ways how this data can be monetized by the attackers, let's understand why it can affect every business, every industry in almost every country. The attackers, their main goal is to infect as many computers as they can, and later see if they find something valuable inside the data. This is the reason that they don't care if somebody in the company of domestic small 10 people company will click on this malware, or it will be delivered to a big multinational public company with 40,000 employees. So first of all, they don't target any specific industry or a company. They say, as I mentioned before, let's infect everybody and then see what we can do. And the reason this is affect any business in any industry in any size, it is because how this malware is delivered to them. And today we know about 4 major types of delivery method. And number 1 is a phishing email. So I don't know anybody who never received a phishing email, and every company found themselves sometimes with some phishing email in the inbox. So this is number 1. Number 2 This is the pirated software. And this is unfortunately the use case when the employee of the company use his or her corporate device to download something from the torrents, for example, because we know that the info stealer can be merged with the files of the torrents. Or it can be on the opposite side, that you have the employee who is using his private computer and doing some corporate job on his private computer and then downloads pirated software. Number three is the fake ads that you see on the Google. So this is like the first result that you see usually under the search bar. We know that this is a known method of the info stealer delivery because a malicious campaign, and this ad will redirect you to download this malware. And the last one is the hijacking fake social media accounts when you simply find maybe compromised YouTube channel that promotes some kind of scam, like send me 1 Bitcoin and in 10 minutes I will send you 2 Bitcoins. And it's calls to action to the victim to download something and execute it. And the reason that I'm speaking about those delivery methods, because they are relevant for everybody, also for the businesses and also for the private people. And again, it doesn't matter in which company do you work, the chance that you can fall inside this trap can affect any industry. Okay? And now let's talk how this data is monetized. So if we'll take the ransomware case, if the victim stores some login credentials to the VPN network or some remote connections to the company inside the browser, and the stealer managed to steal it, and as we discussed before, you also have the cookies, I can take this remote connection, connect to the remote servers of one of the company, and simply deploy the ransomware. So this is how it works, and we also see this happening on the Russian cybercrime forums when people say, I sell access to remote company in the United States, in the Europe, or in the Asia, whatever, and the origin of the access is from the info stealer infection. This is for the ransomware. If I'm speaking about the account takeovers, and I'm as a victim storing my LinkedIn credentials inside the browser, and it was also compromised, I can simply hijack somebody else's LinkedIn account. It can be like C-level executives or maybe some other employee of the company, and starting to do some sending the messages from this account. And again, it can be LinkedIn account, Facebook account, email account, doesn't matter. And for corporate espionage, this is like the most tricky one. If I have a connection that, again, the credentials were obtained from this info stealing infection for some very sensitive company, I can a little bit wait with my attack, but I can sit in stealth mode in somebody else's email or somebody else's server and collect this data that later can be used for cyber espionage. So this is how this data from the info stealers can be monetized by different threat actors.
So as our main audience are mostly risk and compliance managers, what they should prioritize right now that they are not doing to prevent this kind of issues in their companies?
So number one, start with proper cybersecurity education. If you're a risk and compliance manager, you need to understand that everybody inside your company know and aware about this threat, what this threat is doing, how it managed to steal the passwords, and what are the potential damage of this data being monetized by the bad guys. This is number one. Number two, go check your personal exposure using our completely free and open services for everybody. If you want to understand exposure of your company in this attack vector, you can simply go to hudsonrock.com, free tools, and you will able in a matter of seconds to see how many compromised employees you have in the company, how many compromised users you have in the company, additional data about your company, and we have the ethical disclosure policy. If you would like to know a little bit more, you can reach out to us. We'll explain you in depth how this affects your company, and we'll be able to help with additional information. And number three is, of course, continuous monitoring. So if you see that today you are okay, it doesn't mean that tomorrow you will not have any employee at the company that, again, by mistake, we're everybody people, we're human, we have a human factor. All of us want to click on the free vacation to Thailand email that we receive. So the monitoring, it is the last step to be sure that you are okay with this threat.
All right, interesting. So let's also discuss how is it Infostealers different with the traditional data breaches? Because you said that there are some other services like we can use platforms like have been found. What is the distinction important for organization to understand?
Yeah, so first of all, we're talking about completely different types of use cases. And this is the misconceptions number one of every cybersecurity. Sometimes I speak with the people and they say, you're talking about the compromised emails and passwords. This is the same what I see in the have been found. So when we talk about third-party data breaches, it is the use case when I take my corporate email or my personal email, register to third-party service like food delivery service, job list site, travel agency, and at some point this service is breached and data is for sale or leaked on one of the forums. Usually in those type of the data breaches, you will have in 99% encrypted passwords. That's really hard to monetize. It can be hashed in some ways, but again, this is a friction level for the threat actors. And maybe this data can be a little bit old. So the breach can happen in 2024, but the actual data is from 2000 and let's say 2 years ago. And again, this is something that is not related to you. This is related to the third-party service. In case of the Infostealers, you and your computer is actually the entire breach as a standalone time breach. So in the stealers, you will have always clear text passwords. There is no such thing as a hashed passwords. For the threat actor, it will be very easy to take this data as is and to log into your account and do an account takeover. Next, usually not usually, 99% of the cases, the Infostealer will have another information about you and the threat actors will be able to do correlation and association between your username and email to other services that you stored inside your browser. And of course, as we discussed before, we have the cookies issue that can help to bypass the multi-factor authentication, and some of them will also know how to steal the password, other files from your computer, something that simply do not exist in the third-party data breaches. So I will summarize this in one sentence that those are completely different use cases, and Have I Been Found is a great service to monitor third-party data breaches, but this is not as Infostealer infection.
All right. You also studied the role of Russian language cybercrime forums in the spread of Infostealer malware. What makes this forum so central to global malware distribution, and how do they operate with this with the cybercrime ecosystem?
Yeah, so as you probably can understand, and every listener can understand, that there is some kind of big operation behind this malware. So you need to develop this malware, you need to support this malware, you need to set up some infrastructure, deliver it, monetize it, and somebody needs to do it. And everything that I described here happens on the Russian cybercrime underground forums. If you go there, and again, this is not an advice, this is just only for the audience, you can find everything available is in a malware as a service model. So you don't need to be a high-end developer to create this malware. You simply can go and hire or rent this malware for 1 month, and 1 month, 3 months, 5 months, whatever. And if you don't know how to set up the infrastructure, you will find people who will set up this for you. and you don't know how to deliver this malware, you can hire a professional as a professional service that again will do it for you. And if you need some assistance to like dig inside this data and understand what is good for ransomware, what is good for account takeover or something else, you can also hire people that will help you with this task. So basically the role of the Russian-speaking forums, and we see that mostly this happens on the Russian-speaking cybercrime forums, that this is some kind of meeting point for different cyber criminals.
All right, Leonid, I would like to ask you a personal opinion. What are the major misconceptions in the field of infostealer, the space that you strongly disagree with?
So first of all, I hear from different people that they say, I have antivirus and I am fully protected. So number one, there is no such thing as 100% security and protection. And infostealers know how to bypass some antiviruses. And unfortunately, we also see the cases when there is a detection by the antivirus, but the person by himself disable the antivirus and run the file again. Okay, so number one, the first misconception, antivirus do not provide 100% protection against the infostealers. Number two, the multi-factor authentication that we discussed here a few times. I also see and hear from the people that they say, I don't care about this account, I have MFA enabled. If somebody will get the password, I have this SMS enabled or Google Authenticator. And we discussed before, you have this cookie issue that I can steal the cookie and get the session. So, and again here, multi-factor authentication is not 100% protection. Number three, and by the way, I will mention 5 of those. Number three, people say, I'm using Mac and Apple devices, and Apple devices are known for being virus-free devices. There is no such things as info stealers for the Apple. And unfortunately, this is not true. We see that during the last 2 years, there is more and more info stealers targeting only Apple devices. They're still not developed as Windows-based stealers, but don't think that Apple device will protect you against the stealer. Number 4, people say, okay, I'm aware about this email and password thing that you don't need to recycle passwords and you need to do you need to have some more complex passwords. And they believe that if you have complex password that is generated by the password manager, this will help. And unfortunately, this is also not true because you can have password with 100 characters. Stealer will be able to steal this password as is in a clear text version. It doesn't matter if it's 1 character, 100 characters, or 1,000 characters. It will always be stolen in a clear text version. And the last one, and maybe we should start with this item. People say there is a human factor. People say it will not happen to me. It will happen to somebody else. It will happen to Leonid. It will maybe happen to Boris. It will maybe happen to other people, but it will not happen to me. And this is a very wrong mindset about the cybersecurity because you need to be always aware about not only the info stealing threats, but any other threats that are relevant for the cybersecurity and understand that this indeed may happen to you. So those are the 5 misconceptions about the info stealers from my side.
All right, fantastic. That's a good summary. Maybe before we finish our interview, can you summarize for our audience just a few, maybe some major points that they have to like takeaways that they took to take away from this interview?
So point number 1, don't break any cybersecurity rules that are guided by your probably CISO at your company. If you're using a corporate laptop, use it only for corporate needs. Don't play their games and don't then download some cracks that probably will be merged with the stealers. This is number one. Number two, be aware about this threat. Okay, so if you go and Google something and you see that you're looking for paid software and you have this Google ad that says that today this software is free only today, only for you, click here, that can be a problem, yeah? And I think that the main takeaway for the audience here will be know about this threat, know how can you protect yourself about this threat, and employ some kind of monitor protection that even if it happens, you will get some kind of notification that will say that happens and have some kind of playbook to how you will act. So
well, just to confirm, the issue can happen only when you click, or you need to click and also execute something.
Usually it's a double click. You need to execute the file.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Leonid, thank you. That's all my questions. Perhaps if I forgot to ask you something that you think is important to our audience, please go ahead.
Perfect. And if your audience have any questions, they can reach Hudson Rock on hudsonrock.com, and you can reach me personally as Leonid Rozenberg on the LinkedIn. And I will happy to discuss with your audience anything that is related to this topic.
All right, fantastic. Thank you for this very useful interview, Leonid, and I hope we will be cooperating with your company in the future for knowledge exchange with a global risk community and Hudson Rock. And I wish you a great success, and hope to see you again on our podcast and our community.
Thank you very much, Boris. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.